this on. Alright guys, it's been a little over 2.5 years, I guess. I think I posted my first video about this thing in March 2018. So here we are, 2.5 years later, and it's still going strong. As you can see, I've got some additions to my setup here to make this run better. And I've changed some of the things that I do when I fill. So first thing, before I was using a water chiller for a while. I don't think I had that in the video before, but that's what I was doing. But I just decided that was unnecessary. So now I fill up this cooler with water, and I usually dump a bag of ice in it, or just dump all the ice that I have in my freezer in there. Keep the water cold. Water in the bottom, water out the top. Let's see, what else did I do? Oh, yeah, so the pressure select cutoff broke not long after I got this unit, and I just rerouted the wires inside to make it run without it. And I have not gone back to that because I realized that having the motor cut off with all that pressure in the line is not good for it. So now whenever I use this, I just watch the pressure. I bleed my water traps throughout the fill process, and then I bleed the whole system empty before turning it off. So the other addition here are these water traps here, and if you have your own compressor, or a Yong Heng specifically, or something like this, you've probably looked for water traps online and seen these. Costs about 200 bucks, but I tell you what, it is absolutely worth it. This thing traps, I have no doubt that it traps all the water. I get a little bit of water out of the water trap on the other side of this, and I get a little bit of water and oil out of this one too, but this thing just dumps. This is the first stage of it. This has a physical water trap inside of it, a condensation separator inside of it. The water comes out of the bottom, air comes back out of this tube into this one, and this one has a molecular sieve and activated carbon sleeve inside of it. And I get tons of water out of this one, absolutely nothing out of this one. So yeah, I'd say it works really great. Let's see, the other thing is this fan. This is a hyper fan. It's made to be a grow fan, but it's a pretty powerful one. I just mounted it on this base where I put the water separator. It's a variable speed, so it moves a lot of air. And the reason I'm using that is because even if you have ice cold water being circulated through this thing, this tube up here and this nut get incredibly hot. And when I have this air running on it throughout the whole fill process, I can go all the way up to 4,000 psi, and this never gets hotter than 130 degrees. And so just to keep that in check a little bit, I usually keep a spray bottle around while I'm filling, and I'll spray that nut off and those tubes every once in a while, and it really keeps everything really cool. The compressor never sounds like it's stressed out or anything, and I typically don't fill anything over 4,200 psi. I usually just go to 4,000, even though this is a 300 bar compressor, so it can go to 4,350 or whatever 300 bar is. I usually keep it to around 4,000 just to not overwork it. All right, so the last upgrade I've made to this system, and this was probably the cheapest thing, was this right here, which is just a little check valve. So this is just like a check valve that would be on a paintball tank or something, but I have this here so that I can put it on my fill whip connected to the tank, and I can open the tank fully when I'm topping off a tank, and then the compressor can just naturally get up to pressure inside the line and inside the water trap, which is very important. You want your water trap to get up to pressure. You don't want to be filling an empty tank from empty to full and just be putting your pressure directly into the tank, because then you're putting water in there, because the water trap itself never really got compressed until the tank was already halfway full. So I use this check valve when I'm topping off tanks. I can turn the tank on and then just let it do the rest of the work. It slowly fills up the line and then it starts pushing into the tank. But also, I started buying these ISI brand tanks instead because they have an easy turn knob. So when I'm filling an empty tank, I can let my line pressurize to about 1500, 2000 psi, and then very, very slightly open the valve so that the line stays at that pressure while the tank is slowly getting from 0 to wherever it's going. And that's how I keep the water trap pressurized. That's about it. I made this. This is my bottle stack here. These are all 90-minute SCBA tanks. Or not 90-minute, 60-minute. I mean. But yeah, I made this. This is like a modular stackable system, so I can just take each tank off and use each one of those as an individual carrier if I need to. The bottom one has some retention on it, so that's the main one that'll be carried around. But I figured if I was going to be spending all this money on tanks, I need some way to store them securely and carry them around securely. It would be pretty devastating if I dropped one of these on the ground. And that's about it. I've got this tank. I just filled this tank up this morning to just barely over 4,000. This one's just under 4,000. I'm gonna top it off later, but this tank is empty. I just got it, so I'm gonna get this one filled up. Alright, so I got this tank hooked up. The bottle is closed. I've got my check valve on the line. The flow goes this way, it restricts that way, so I can drain any of the system before that to get the water out if I'm doing a long fill, and the pressure will stay inside the tank. So the first step, I'm just gonna talk it over before I do it, because when I turn this thing on, it's gonna be loud. The first thing I'm gonna do, now that I've got everything set up and all my valves are open still except for the bottle is still closed, I'm gonna turn the compressor on so that it can get up to speed, and then I'm gonna start closing valves, starting with this one, then that one, then that one, and then I'm gonna close the water trap on the other side. And after that, the system should start pressurizing. Before I get completely going here, I just wanted to point out one of the reasons why I like to do it this way and go in this order is because I like to let this one drain for a little bit longer, having air being pushed through the system, because when you fill this whole thing up to 4,000 psi and then you try to drain the water out of here, a lot of it just freezes. No matter how slowly you try to do it, it'll freeze in there. So I know there's still a little bit of liquid sitting in there, so I want to let the whole system run for a while and blow some air through there to push the residual water out of there that was frozen from the last fill I did, which was only like 40 minutes ago or something. Anyway. not too bad. So that's how I turn everything off. Open up all the drain ports and let the compressor keep running down to a low pressure, down to no pressure. And it looks like my check valve did its job. I'm still at 1,000 psi in this tank. And now, my valve is completely open now. I let it run for a while at about 1,800 just to keep the water trap pressurized. And then I opened it up here at the end just to see what the full tank pressure would be at. So I'm up to 1,000. That took about, I don't know, maybe 30 minutes. A little less probably. I forgot to set a timer. But anyway, I'm going to stop for now until I can go to the store and get a bag of ice, because I used all my ice. And I think that's really one of the most important parts of keeping this machine cool, is having ice cold water running through that thing. You see my water's up to almost 80 degrees now. Let's see. Yeah, the stuff coming out of the hose is about 80 degrees right now. It's still cooling the machine down, but I like to keep this top nut and high pressure line under 140, and it was going around 140, 145, even touched 150 a couple times, and I spritzed it with the spray bottle. But I don't know, I just feel like that's part of making this machine last a long time. It really works great. It does what it's supposed to do as long as you can keep it cool and don't overwork it. I try not to run it for more than 30 minutes at a time, let it have a 30-minute break, and keep that water reservoir full of ice. Keep that water cold. That's why I keep it in a cooler. I want it to stay cold for as long as it can. I found that using a bucket of water, that water gets hot in no time. So, yeah. So this is my oldest tank right here, and this is a tank from 2002. So I can't get it hydro tested anymore. But it did pass hydro test right when it was 15 years old, so I'm not too worried about it. I've been keeping my air dry. These two tanks are brand new. That one's from 2012. This one is 2010. I'm pretty sure, the one that I'm filling right now. Let's see. Go ahead and close this up. And drain my fill whip. For anyone interested in this bottle carrier, in case you want to make something like this for yourself, I can't tell you what these are, because these are just some old plastic feet from some table or workbench system that's long forgotten. But they were sitting around and they look like they would be perfect for the bottle because of the slope sides. So here's another one. This is the main carry one. I just had some aluminum bands laying around that I just hand bent, screwed onto there, and zip tied a big piece of cushiony foam on there to hold it steady and not scratch anything. And that's just like a big bumper. And then for the front one, so that I can take the tanks in and out, you'll see on the side here, focus that, yeah, just got a slot here, slot there, two strategically placed screws, so that the whole thing, slides up and down, and then tilts up, and you can pull your bottle out, no problem. That's just the squeaking of the bottle on the plastic. It's not getting scratched. You see I got that foam. There's plenty of clearance there. It's not touching it. But anyway, so that's that. And the arm tilts back down and goes straight down and locks on that screw. And that bottle is retained.